And we are back. Our next guest champions the idea of elevating individuals to realize their full potential and freeing them through entrepreneurship. Now, with nearly 2 decades of experience in global business development, she channels this expertise into driving impactful change through visionary execution. Here now is the executive producer of Green Project and founder of Preneurology Global. We've got Lakeisha French. And Lakeisha, good to have you.
Great. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I want to take a moment just to get your thought on this. How do you get to the place where you actually have this mixture, if you will, this fusion of like economic empowerment and entrepreneurship? What's behind the thought here?
Sure. So, the thought behind that really comes from lived experience. I myself grew up in the inner city. I was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey, and spent a lot of time watching my surroundings, but also spent a lot of time getting involved in economic development programs very early on. I understood the challenges and barriers that were there growing up where I was from. And so I started searching for solutions and found entrepreneurship, or it found me. And I saw entrepreneurship as a pathway to liberation, but I also saw it as a way to create economic prosperity, not just individual economic prosperity, but as a collective. Started focusing a lot on the Black community, um, many marginalized communities, and just it starts with curiosity. So I was just curious, could is this something, could entrepreneurship lead us on a pathway to parity in terms of economically and also social parity, being being a citizen in the United States, but then looking at blackness around the world, wondering if we could ever get to a place where we don't have these silent social contracts that we have to abide by. And so entrepreneurship again showed up as a pathway to that liberation, both economically and socially, being able to build and create and innovate the world that you envision, creating what you don't see, and also benefiting from it economically.
Yeah, you've been a great advocate when it comes to entrepreneurship and particularly equity. We've been talking on the show about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but when we talk about equity in entrepreneurship, that is huge. How do you define equity in entrepreneurship?
Ooh, I would define equity and entrepreneurship as everyone having the freedom to fail.
And when you say that, unpack that for a moment, because you say everyone have, and I know where you're going, but take us there.
Yeah. So if you look at the startup world, for example, right, there's been a lot of buzz the past decade or so around tech companies in particular, the emerging technology that's happening with AI. We're moving into quantum now. And so when you think about startup entrepreneurship, technology, and the things that we build, right, I talked about, a few minutes ago about creating the things that you wish existed or that need to exist, whether that's a product, a service, a nonprofit, that takes capital. It takes capital, both social and economic capital, to build those things. A lot of the time, it takes failure, right? You have to fail forward. If you talk to most successful startup entrepreneurs or innovators, they will tell you that they failed 99 times, and that one time they were successful, right? And have built $100 million company, $1 billion company, or even successful small businesses. It takes many attempts at it, and so unfortunately, you need capital to be able to do that. Again, social and economic, and that is something that marginalized communities, in particular, the global Black community and diaspora, has not been afforded. We have for a very long time been the asset class and the commodity that has been used to be the invisible engine of the U.S. and global economy, but have never received a return on that investment. So the capital is not there because of systemic issues, but the capitalism itself was built on the backs of the Black community, and so that capital is not there. The policies are not in place to create the economic injection that's needed. So when you talk about entrepreneurship and starting businesses, yes, there is the build it from the bottom up and the bootstrapping, but a lot of the times it takes failure and it takes money and relationships, and that is a barrier to opportunity.
Yeah.
So the freedom to fail is the freedom to attempt to create.
We talk about your work. Some of the work that you've done has actually been able to transform the landscape when it comes to startups, when it comes to organizations. Share a little bit with us about the work that you've done and how you've been able to make that transformational impact.
Sure, sure. Oh gosh, it has been a joy. I will say that. I know a lot of the times when we talk about DEI and entrepreneurship in particular, within Black and Brown communities, we talk a lot about the disparities and the challenges. But I have really, truly found it enjoyable to work with Black innovators and entrepreneurs and creatives to help them get the tools that they need to be able to build successful businesses. I do believe in scientific entrepreneurship. I've spent a lot of time in the tech ecosystem and tech economies, helping to build ecosystems for over the past 18 years. And so all those learnings that I picked up on, and quite frankly, sometimes distracting for what I was seeing our white counterparts doing, building over and over again. There are methods to this. There are tools. There are processes and systems that work. When you go into a startup or a small business, you get to see that. So I've spent my career both from a programmatic perspective. I developed a youth entrepreneurship program for K through 12 students called CEO of My Life. That still operates globally to this day, and then moved into adult entrepreneurship training. So it to me, given us the tools to be able to create, we don't lack passion and ingenuity and vision, but those tools is what's important. So that's what I've spent my career doing.
Yeah. You're also the executive producer, or I should say, executive producer of the Green Project. And I want to have an opportunity for you to share a little bit about the Green Project and how that works.
Yeah, sure. So this is again all a part of that body of work. And so as I was, doing, programmatic work, training entrepreneurs and innovators, and then moved into ecosystem building, helping them build models around technology economies, I realized that we would never be able to have a sustainable pathway for Black entrepreneurs to be a part of the future economies if we continue to have like these emotionally driven responses, like during George Floyd's murder, when you had all these companies giving money to Black entrepreneurs. And I started thinking to myself, and I said, well, Black entrepreneurship is not new, right? We've been doing this. And there's data. So I said, well, what if we go back 100 or so years and really try to understand what the trajectory of Black entrepreneurship is? And that led us to these stories of successful, high growth Black businesses that have existed for, I mean, since the 1800s. And the Green Project is about those stories and those entrepreneurs who have been innovating forever. And so we're pulling a lot of data from that project, but there's a beautiful story that's going to be told from the Green Project as well. And we named it after Victor Hugo's Green Book, if you're familiar with that.
Absolutely. Very familiar with the book and is a helpful hint to so many people back in the day. And I think that more people need to get the Green Book
They will.
to
They will.
know from whence we've come, for sure, for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
as we look right now, and as I was saying, I was having a conversation with some of our earlier guests talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. Some of the things that we're really talking about is really that we have to embrace some of these policies that are out there, and I mean policies not in what they're trying to enact. I'm talking about policies that we're trying to enact to get people more on board to know that there's some things that are out there that can really be beneficial to helping the cause. I know you're at the front lines of that as well when it comes to policy reform. What are some of the things that the public should be paying attention to in the scope of your work with regards to policy reform that maybe we're not?
Sure. I would say the first thing from a policy perspective for us to pay attention to is um, investment policies around investing, becoming investors, investing in startups. We are in, not just moving towards, but we are in uh, uh, a technology and innovation sort of renaissance. And so we are living in an age where everything is being sort of repurposed and every facet of life is being changed by AI and technology. And so there are a lot of startups and companies that are popping up. And so people are investing in these companies. Those who get in now and invest in these companies will hold the wealth of the future. So if we want to have economic standing and prosperity in the future of the economy and not just simply be the workforce of the future, we need to be able to invest in ideas and companies. And right now, the regulations around who can be an investor, what the ceiling is for that. There's a lot of policy reform that's happening. A lot of great policies being pushed forward, bipartisan policies around allowing everyday average folks to be able to invest and lowering the barrier of entry. Because if we cannot invest, we are not participating, fully in the economy of the future, right? So now is the time, so we need to innovate ourselves, get IP and trademark and patent protection. So looking at policies around intellectual property, particularly the creator economy. I know you have heard about what's happening with, on TikTok and all the creators. And so we need policies around protecting creativity, because creativity in the creator economy is one of the fastest growing economic pathways for our community and investing. So those are the two policy areas that I would keep my eye on.
And as you look at barriers out there, I mean, obviously there's a lot of barriers that we are contending with on a daily basis. What would be the biggest barrier that I think entrepreneurs are really contending with these days? I mean, I would say, just boots on the ground, access to resources, right? And then also access to funding capital. And then when you do have grants that are actually out there that are available, some of these entrepreneurs really don't qualify because they don't necessarily have the right kind of, whether it's the financial backing, whether it's, the stuff that's required for a grant application, the vault applications. There's some challenges out there.
Yeah, for sure. There are a lot of challenges. And I want to be like super, intentional in answering this. I believe there's more opportunity than challenges, and
Hmm.
I would just encourage our community to stay focused on a asset-based mindset and abundance. We have enough, right? Um, there is, when you look at what's driving the economy, culture being one of those things, technology, innovation. I would look at this opportunity. There's a demographic shift happening right now. By 2045 here in the U.S., it will be majority people of color. I realize the Black community is not the majority in that majority, but given the fact that we have this AI revolution that's happening, these industries being repurposed, I would focus on the opportunity. I think there's much more opportunity than challenges right now. We have some amazing folks breaking down those barriers to those challenges, and we need to continue to do so. But I would tell us to double down on the opportunity. We need more production, not focusing so much on our spending power. And this is where the Black GDP that we are launching the end of this year in September. We have a Black GDP report coming out, and it's focused on what are the opportunities to accelerate and expand the Black GDP to increase production across sectors and industries that are high growth and are going to generate economic activity. And so we need to be getting into those spaces. The barriers in those spaces, again, are around capital and policy. And so I think every entrepreneur, every innovator, every creative has to be in advocacy work at this point in time. There's not a choice, right? There's not the people that do advocacy work and then entrepreneurs, and innovators. I think everybody needs to be on the front lines, but we have to be building and taking advantage of these windows of opportunity because they're closing fast. We are already behind. Like I said, AI is the topic of the conversation right now, but folks are quickly moving on to quantum, and we need to be building businesses and innovating in those spaces.
Lakeisha, how do people get in touch with you for the work that you're doing? Obviously, there may be an entrepreneur out there, innovator out there that needs to get that much needed advice.
Sure. You can reach me. I think that's at LakeishaFrench.com. Shoot me a message. I'm on Instagram as well and LinkedIn. Very active on LinkedIn, and you can go to futureincolor.org and follow us, and make sure you keep an eye out for the Black GDP report coming out at the end of this year. Every entrepreneur should have it in their hand.
Lakeisha French, God, thank you so much for joining us, and we're glad to have you, and certainly we'll continue to follow the work.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to it.
All righty, keep up the great work. Lakeisha French here with us. And listen, taking a quick break, but guess what? We got more right after this.